We are live here. Vikings 34, Houston Texans 7. Happy Samtember to all of you who celebrate. Unbelievable. We talked last week about the Vikings beating the 49ers 23-17. We thought that was impressive. We were starting to get the gist of maybe what this team was about in week one when they beat the Giants pretty easily, maybe more easily than I thought. I didn't even know if they're going to win that game. They win that game 28-6. It's kind of been the same formula every week. And you talk about an identity of a team coming together quickly, that is coming together very quickly for this Minnesota Vikings football team. It is a team that plays complementary football. It's a team that Kevin O'Connell has preached from the start, wants to be tougher, wants to have a certain identity. I don't think you can carve out a better identity through 3 games, especially these last 2 home games against 2 tough teams, 49ers and the Texans. Texans were 2-0. This was a good team. This is a team with legitimate deep playoff run aspirations in the AFC. I don't know if we're ready to say Super Bowl yet, but we're ready to say deep playoff run aspirations for the Texans. The Vikings took them apart. Yeah, there was some self-inflicted stuff for the Texans, especially in the first half. A lot of pre-snap penalties. Like Laramie Tunzel had 3 penalties for lining up in the wrong place, too far back in the backfield. They had the sequence where they had 4 pre-snap penalties in a row. Texans didn't do themselves any favors, but you know what? The Vikings put a lot of pressure on them to make those mistakes. So kind of, again, a start to finish sort of dominance from the Vikings. I said at the end of the broadcast, remember the Vikings were 13-4 2 years ago. They needed last minute, kind of pull it out at the end, either make a big stop, make a big play, pull out a touchdown at the end, come back from 33-0 down to win a game. This team feels different. This is a great start for what I think now is a good team. We need to know more. We need to see more. But right now, you cannot help but be impressed by what you have seen so far. Some of the highlights we'll get to in a minute. I want to make a Lynx comparison. Lynx are going to play in about 45 minutes, first round of the playoffs. Nobody thought much about the Lynx at the start of the season. I wrote about that a few days ago. Nobody thought much about that team. They're over-under on a 40-game season with 16.5 wins. 8 teams make the playoffs. Some teams didn't even think the Lynx were going to make the playoffs in a 12-team WNBA. They wind up as the number 2 seed, 30-10. They did it by being a complete team, a team that is greater than the sum of its parts, that has a superstar. Sure, Nafisa Collier second in the MVP voting, but you cannot overestimate how much being a good team plays into this. And right now, the Vikings are that kind of team, right? A team that's already exceeding expectations. They came into the year 6.5 was their win total, just like the Lynx were 16.5. ESPN gave them a 15% chance of making the playoffs when the season started. They have already kind of rewritten that. Going into this game, the projection was already up over 9. I want to see where it is now. It's going to be probably close to 10 now. This is a team that isn't just winning. It is winning in a certain way that will make you take notice. So I think the Lynx comp so far is a good one. The Lynx, again, greater than the sum of their parts. I don't know exactly what that's going to translate to in the playoffs, but I do know that they proved themselves over the course of the year. Everybody kept kind of kept waiting for something to go wrong, but all of a sudden, here we go, 40 games. They're still that same team. So I'm really impressed with this team. I don't know how you can not be impressed with a 34-7 win against a very good Texans team, a team that Kevin O'Connell, obviously, if you heard him talk all week, if you heard him talk at, after the 14-0 first quarter, ton of respect for the Texans, ton of respect for what they are capable of. But again, O'Connell's game plan, Brian Flores' defensive game plan, again, this is just a well-coached team. It's a very well-coached team. You can tell by the way they execute. You can tell by the things they're doing on the field. You can tell by the game plan. You can tell by the confidence that they seem to be playing with. Let's get to some reader stuff really quick and some listener stuff before we get too deep into some other stuff. Brian popped into the stream saying the confidence is contagious without egos for the Vikings. I agree with that. I think that's absolutely spot on. They have confidence without having big egos at this point. I think they're capable of keeping that up, but that is, again, you earn it over the course of 17 games. This is only 3. I think their depth is a little bit of a concern still. You saw Darnold go out, goes out with the, ankle, whatever it was, for a minute there. You're like, uh-oh. Who would have thought at the beginning of the season that Sam Darnold getting hurt could be something that could potentially derail the season? Well, he only goes out for one play. Nick Mullins hands off once. Darnold right back in, starts playing well again. But the confidence they're playing with, it is contagious. I agree with that, Brian. I agree with that because it seems like it's going from offense then to defense. They feel like they're playing complementary enough football where one side's going to score, the other side's going to get the ball back. The special teams, Brandon Powell, underrated play in the game. Brandon Powell's back to retrieve a punt. He's at like the 5. He calls for a fair catch, lets it go, knocks the Texans player out of the way. Ball rolls into the end zone, saves them like 15 yards of field position. Will Reichard, they let him try a 58-yard field goal towards the end of the game. He knocks it through, albeit off the upright, but it goes through. Plenty of leg. This is a team that is executing in all phases of the game, and it has the Vikings confident. And guess what? It has fans confident. Here's something else. Dan Cook from WCCO, is the optimal parade route down Nicollet or Hennepin? Okay, getting ahead of ourselves, even though I did name the Stream Super Bowl parade route. Yeah, that's how people are feeling right now, though. Even if they're joking to kind of mask the pain of what has happened in years past, that is how people are feeling right now about this team. You beat the Giants 28-6. You beat the 49ers 23-17. Could have been a 2-touchdown win there if not for some untimely turnovers, some stuff at the end of the game. Then you beat the Texans 34-7. Again, this one could have been a little bit tighter. Texans, some self-inflicted stuff. Turnovers told a big story, but still 34-7. It felt like the Vikings were at least 2 touchdowns better than the Texans today, and that says a lot. Similar vein, PJ Flex ego. I don't think this is really PJ Flex ego tweeting, but we'll see. Should I book a room with 2 double beds or a single queen in New Orleans? Again, a little bit early. Again, I think Vikings fans have this kind of reflexive need to, dull the pain of what's happened in the past. Make jokes about the Super Bowl. Make jokes about the parade route, stuff like that. I get it. I think that is part of the process of being a Vikings fan, part of the process of grieving so many years that have not ended the way you want it to end. But I will say this: who's playing better in the NFL right now? I don't know that there's a team that has been more impressive in starting 3-0 than the Vikings. Again, that doesn't mean that they're the best team in football. I'm just saying they have been more impressive than anybody else that I've watched, anybody else statistically, anybody else in all phases of the game. They've got it cooking on all parts of the game right now. No doubt about it. Sam Darnold, huge again, 4 touchdown passes. What can you say? He's been lights out. We keep waiting again. Sam Darnold, is he gonna, is the other shoe gonna drop with Sam Darnold? Not so far.
Darnold looks, throws it, caught, Naylor, touchdown.
Just another Darnold dart. That's all he's doing is firing darts all around the field. A little bit dicey with some of the decision making, a couple of those shovel passes, like they caught a couple of breaks. I get it. Still, though, it didn't feel like this was a game of breaks. It felt like it was a game the Vikings dominated and got a couple breaks along the way. The shovel passes, the backwards pass that Powell ends up jumping on, gets like 7 yards out of it. The arm gets hit, stuff like that. But by and large, he's making the right decision. And down by the goal line, he is absolutely firing darts to all different receivers. Like Jefferson had one, Jones had one, Naylor had one. And then the last one, I'm blanking on who had the last one for the Vikings, but 4 touchdowns. They're just getting it all up. Munt had the last one, and that was an absolute bullet right in there. 3rd down. He's been great on 3rd down. He's been great escaping pressure. He's been great stepping around, moving up in the pocket. He didn't run today. He didn't run it all today, but he did give them enough elusiveness, extending plays, especially that touchdown to Jefferson that started it all off. When Jefferson, was running around in the end zone trying to get open, Darnold extends that play, ends up being wide open in the end zone. That's something that Darnold can do. Again, we have a tendency to want to make comparisons to what they've had in the past. Kirk Cousins, players like that. This is not Kirk Cousins. This is a different quarterback than Kirk Cousins. You would not have expected coming into the season that Sam Darnold would be having the level of success he's having right now. You would not have expected that you might say, hey, look, I would rather have Sam Darnold at a comparable price compared to Kirk Cousins right now. I don't think you would not have gone into the season thinking that. The whole premise of this was, hey, he's a stopgap. He's a one-year guy. $10 million versus $45 for Kirk Cousins. What are you, crazy? Of course you'd rather have that. But right now, flat out, the way they're playing, what they bring to the table, I would rather have Sam Darnold. I don't know if I'm still going to want Sam Darnold in week 12 when things have started to show up on film, things like that, when there's been some mistakes, when there's been a little bit more of that. But right now, all I know is this. Sam Darnold, 8 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions today, 17 of 28. Didn't have huge numbers, but here's this too. Think about this. 28 pass attempts for the Vikings, 28 run attempts for the Vikings, including the kneel down for Mullins at the very end of the game. That is the kind of balance that they have wanted. They haven't been able to do it in the past, A, because I don't think Kevin O'Connell committed to it, B, because I think they trusted Kirk Cousins a little bit more and ran a little bit different offense with Kirk Cousins, but also Aaron Jones absolutely makes a difference in this realm. 19 carries, 102 yards today. Also 5 catches for 46 yards and a touchdown. Almost had a rushing touchdown, got pulled down at the 1. You could tell he wanted that one, didn't get in, but did start another streak of 100-yard games potentially. So that is where they're at with that. That's where they're at with that. So they've got that going. They've got they got the defense rolling. Cam Bynum had an interception today. The guy filling in for Pace, Grugier Hill, ends up with an interception as well. They pressured all over the field, 5 sacks. Grenard had 3 against his former team showing up. Daniil Hunter had the hit on Darnold that knocked him out of the game for a play. Got a penalty on that, by the way. He was a factor, but not the kind of factor that you would pay that much money to. So I think Grenard is going to be an excellent fit for this defense. He's up to 4 sacks in the season. This defense can get to you in so many different ways. They can play coverage. They can play, they can pressure. Brian Flores has the pieces now to dial this all up. He's got the pieces now to put this all together. I just think it's amazing what giving him talent can do. I just think it's pretty crazy how much he's able to add to the mix when he has the talent that he has obviously right now. Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, all these other pieces they've added since the offseason. Grenard, obviously, already talked about him. All these pieces they've added adds up to a really, really good defense. A defense that I said last week already has my vote best Vikings defense since 2017. They didn't do anything to dispel that today. CJ Stroud hadn't thrown an interception in like 9 games, something like that, some streak like that, 260 some passes, throws 2 on this game, throws the 1 right off the bat. Harrison Phillips gets a hand up, deflects it. Just lots of good signs if you're the Vikings, not winning one way, not having to win a certain way, not having to come back and win these games. A completely different vibe from 2022, certainly from last year, and a completely different vibe from where we thought they were at the beginning of this season. Couple other things before I get out of here. Another reader commented, Green Bay is better than I thought. That is a thing to remind ourselves of. Next week, Vikings at Packers. Packers finish it off today. They go 2-0 without Jordan Love. We'll see if Jordan Love is back. Malik Willis plays well for them, rushing and passing. They have a strong game. They're able to beat the Titans, who are not very good, but still they were able to take care of that business. Looking up the final score here, final in that one was 30-14. Malik Willis, 73 yards rushing and a touchdown, had about 200 yards passing. Green Bay finding a way to get it done again, like I said, albeit against a bad opponent. If you had to go power rankings in the NFC North right now, I think it's clear the Bears are number 4 still, even with Caleb Williams having a better game this time, threw for 363, a touchdown, 2 touchdowns, but they didn't get it done at the end. Colts beat them 21-16. Lions are still, kind of by default, the team that you're thinking of in that territory. But still, you're thinking about where these teams are at. As of recording right now, Lions just started against the Cardinals. You would think the Lions win that game, but you don't know. Vikings 3-0, Packers 2-1, Lions 1-1. We'll see where they get to after this game. Bears 1-2. if you're just going by record, the Vikings are at the top of this division. I think if you're talking about talent, you got to kind of picture this as a three-team race right now. Vikings, Packers, Lions. It's going to come down to who can stay healthiest, who can stay truest to their identity, who can kind of make themselves believe that they are excellent. But the Vikings, I think, are right there in that conversation. I would never have predicted that at the start of the year. Never would have thought that was something this team was capable of. I was like, this is a 6-win team. They're already halfway to that at this point in the season. So complimentary football. Darnold dimes. I mean, he's just been on fire. He's been so good. He's been so ahead of where I thought he would be. It's a remarkable start to the season. I didn't see this coming. I don't think any of you saw this coming, if you're being honest. That's just where this team is at right now. I'm gonna try to show some box score stuff here really quick. So you got right there, Vikings, Texans. Let's go through it. See, Darnold, 17 of 28, 181, 4 touchdowns, 119.2 passer rating. He's way up in there. I'm sure his total QBR is way up there. Stroud, numbers weren't bad, but the 2 picks, he got sacked 4 times. They couldn't get their running game going. Houston only had 14 carries for 38 yards. Minnesota, 28 for 118. I think they'd take that most weeks. Jones, 19 for 102. Really good game for him. Jefferson, 6 for 81. That was all in the first half. Dropped the 3rd down pass in the second half, but he still had a big impact in this game. Aaron Jones, Jaron Naylor, and then again the Johnny Munt touchdown. Doing all this, by the way, without Jordan Addison, who's missed the last 2 games, and TJ Hawkinson. Imagine adding those 2 guys back into the mix soon. You would think that Addison's probably back next week. You would hope Hawkinson might be back after week 4, after that Packers game, because he was on the short-term injured reserve, eligible to come back after week 4 when they play in London. Oh, by the way, a game I'm going to, so getting ready for that as well. Just looking through this, looking through the defensive impact. You had Van Ginkel, everybody like a bunch of, 6 tackles, sacks, Grenard, 3 sacks, passes defended, Bynum, Harrison Smith. This is just a team that is well-rounded, well-covered on the defensive end. You had a Camus Grugier-Hill had the interception. We saw that. The punts were even good. The punts were good. Reichard made all of his kicks again. Ryan Wright, 4 good punts, 2 inside the 20. Just a total team effort. It's a total team effort. It's not controversial at this point, just given how good they look. But you just do have to look at this team and say they are as impressive as anybody else in the NFL right now, and 2 or 3 times more impressive than I could have imagined at this point in the season, because they are exceeding my wildest expectations. I did not think this was a good team, and it very well might be a great team. Thanks for joining the stream. Go watch the afternoon games. Enjoy it. Get ready for Packers week next week, and we'll talk to you then.